Happy Friday and welcome to another episode of BrainScratch. I'm John Lorden. Thank you so much for joining me here today. Today we have a special episode. This is a BrainScratch update episode. We've got one that's a Searchlight case that I think is now coming into BrainScratch territory, and the search for justice in that case is just beginning. We have an update from last week's case where it looks like justice is coming rapid, and we've got a ton of detail to go through. And we've also got another case that's very close to my heart where the fight for justice continued this past weekend on October 11th, the 4th anniversary of the death. And I was there personally to see it for myself. Let's go ahead and get started with our first story of the day. And this is an episode we did a while ago, you might remember, called What Happened to Greta Putnam and Dominic Updates. Just to give you kind of a very brief overview, Greta was found murdered in her home. Dominic disappeared a few days before that. And it was just really a big question of, was there any connection? And I was really struggling with, there had to be some connection. It's like lightning striking twice in the same family. And I'm not saying that there was a connection where Dominic might have been responsible for what happened to Greta. I just thought there was some relation for some reason for how these events unfolded. It doesn't look like that's the case, at least from where we're at right now. They found a suspect in Greta's case. Seems like he is a transient. In Dominic's case, we just didn't know where Dominic was. But now we have an answer for that. Over at plumasnews.com from October 8th, 2020, the Plumas County Sheriff's Office announced last evening, October 7th, that the human remains found by a hunter on October 5th at the end of First Avenue in Chester have been positively identified as Dominic Updates of Greenville. Sheriff Todd Johns said that the investigation into the cause of Potts' death is ongoing. Johns contacted the family when the remains were found. They were understandably devastated, Johns said. Potts' vehicle was located shortly after he was reported missing in 2018 in the area of First Avenue, the same general vicinity of where the remains were located. I'm just kind of struggling with that thought, that idea that the remains are found that close to where the vehicle was actually left. And it just makes you wonder about search efforts. What happened? How was that missed? On the kind of unofficial tip, I'm seeing information saying that the remains might have been as far as half a mile from where the vehicle is, certainly within a decent search perimeter, but there is also a lake where this is going on. However, with the way that they're describing that the remains were found, I don't know if the lake really played a part of it or not. They were found by a hunter, so I'm not 100% sure. But there is a comment from the Find Dominic Updates Facebook page I wanted to share with you guys as well. It is with great sadness and heartbreak that we must report that the remains discovered near Lake Almanor yesterday are indeed those of our beloved Dominic. It's been a very long 23 months since our golden boy went away. We want to thank our wonderful community for all your continued love and support. We also want to thank the Plumas County Sheriff's Office for the way the discovery of Dominic's remains was handled, and we want to wish them and the other forensic professionals that are involved Godspeed, strength, and perseverance as they pursue the investigative efforts that will bring us real closure. Right now, we are allowing ourselves time to process this news, and we ask for your continued patience and consideration. I beg everyone to give them ample space to grieve during this time. Please refrain from calling, messaging, and texting as it is overwhelming. We know that there is a whole community that is now grieving our boy, and we respect that. A time will come that we'll be able to properly celebrate who Dominic was and what he meant to us. For now, though, hold each other, love each other, and never take a single moment for granted. Aloha oi, Dom. We will love you forever. I did have some contact with family and very close friends around this case. And as a matter of fact, we still had tips coming in about this case. I think it was just about a month ago, I had some new information came in that I had forwarded over to the family as well. I don't know. From what I understand, I believe it's a skull that's been found. So the forensic work on this is probably going to be very difficult in terms of trying to determine what happened to him. I don't know if there's more to be found there, if there's searches that are going on around that. I'm hoping that there are. There's a lot of talk kind of in the rumor mill about some potential bad elements that might have been part of what Dominic was engaged with. I don't know if those are going to come into play at all. But you're talking about a very young man disappearing, and then we're finding his body 23 months later. So my gut's telling me something is at play here, and I'm really hoping that there are enough pieces of this puzzle that the investigators can start putting it together for the family and really get them a bit more of a definitive answer, because this really has to be just... I don't know if it's the toughest place. I think the toughest place is not knowing where he was, but now knowing where he is and not really having any explanation or answers, that's got to be extremely tough as well. And I truly hope those answers are coming for them. Continuing on to the next case we're going to talk about today, the execution of Tai'raz Moore. This is a case we covered last week, one that really still just tugs at my heart, and a lot of you obviously as well. I started getting numerous updates from you guys about developments that were going on. I've been holding off till there was kind of the right amount of information. We've already got enough, and we're only here a week later. I think we've got justice arriving in this case, and I'm really happy that it's looking that way. Let's go ahead and see what information has come out. Starting with an article at MacombDaily.com, Warren police bring in person of interest in double murder. I don't know why they keep calling it double murder, because it's actually triple. They must be talking about the specific instance at the home. But this was posted October 9th, 2020. Warren Police Commissioner William Dwyer said Friday morning officers executed a search warrant in West Bloomfield Township along with Detroit police and federal authorities, and that a person was brought in for questioning. Evidence was also removed from the home. So very early in the week, we started getting some hints of, hey, something good might be happening with this case. They've looked at a house, they've got someone they're bringing in for questioning, but things move really rapidly even from there. Moving on to Detroit.cbslocal.com, West Bloomfield man charged in execution-style killing of 6-year-old boy and 2 others. And this is posted October 13th. A 37-year-old West Bloomfield man has been charged with killing a 6-year-old boy and 2 others that stemmed over drugs and money, according to police. Nicholas Rod Bari is believed to be responsible for the deaths. So not only do we have the investigation move quickly, this guy's brought in, they're putting his name out there, and they're putting details out there very rapidly around this as well. I do think that Dwyer has been extremely motivated in this case. What I wouldn't give for us to see what we're seeing with this police force and how motivated they were with this investigation. I wish we could see that for all the cases that we talk about here on the channel. I want to take my hats off to them. I'm very moved at how quickly they worked this case, and that they're communicating with the public in a way where we can actually kind of make some sense out of what their beliefs are at this time. Just a reminder, yes, innocent until proven guilty. Bari is charged with 15 counts, which included 3 counts of premeditated homicide and related weapons offenses, arson. Of course, we have the vehicle that was burned that Tai'raz's father was found in, and disinterment and mutilation of a dead body. Once again, I believe that would be in relation to Tai'raz's father. He was denied bond. So on top of that, they're not risking this guy being a flight risk. They're not even going to give him a chance. And here is a picture of the man. This is from Fox2Detroit.com. Bari was charged with the brutal murder of 3 people, including a 6-year-old boy in Warren, who was shot execution style on October 1st. I'm still kind of blown away that, we're 2 weeks away from that as of when I'm recording this. And I can't believe that there's a man in custody. It sounds like they've got a lot of good evidence that we're going to they're not going to tell us exactly, they're not coming outright with all of it, but we're going to see we've got some decent pieces to the puzzle that they're putting together here. And I do think we've got a very strong chance for a conviction. One of the questions we had from last week's episode, because originally they were saying they thought it might be more than one person, but now we're seeing very clearly, according to police, he's the only man responsible. According to police, he was at the home for about 10 minutes, just hours before Tai'raz and what would have been his stepmother, from what I understand, she was actually engaged to his father, were found dead. Shortly after that, police said he was spotted on surveillance video driving a rental car registered to Tai'raz's father, Tokoyo, and buying gasoline and a gas can at 8 Mile and Woodward. Critical pieces here. So, I mean, we've literally got him buying gasoline. We know that the vehicle is found on fire. We've got footage of him driving that vehicle in particular. One of the other questions we had off last week's episode was the timing of it all. What is the order in which these murders took place, and would that help us understand how they could catch him? We can see they started tracking that information. Cameras had to play a key part of this for them to see where that vehicle went, for them to pick up that the vehicle actually stopped at that particular gas station. And they're saying they have surveillance footage from that gas station as well. So a few hours later, police said his internet phone history showed he was searching for expensive watches and Googled news reports about burning vehicles in Detroit. So technical information, internet history also coming into play here. It was all about drugs and money, and I'll leave it at that, says Warren Police Commissioner Bill Dwyer on Tuesday. Tokoyo Moore was last seen on the evening of September 30th, and where was he seen? In the driveway of Bari's house, which was determined based on cell phone records and security camera footage from Bari's home, from his own home. Also in that video was the rental car where he was later found dead. So once again, we've got cameras playing a very big part of this case so far. Around 10 p.m. that night, police said GPS data showed the rental drove around Oakland County before eventually arriving at the home on Otis in Warren, and it left 12 minutes later. He was only there 12 minutes. That really is once again showing an aspect of this being predetermined. This was a plan. This is something he had to do. And we're going to see as we go through these articles, there might be good reason. If you recall from last week's episode, one of the things that was kind of being theorized was Tai'raz might have been able to identify this guy. And I think that's the case. After leaving the Warren home, he stopped at the gas station. Last week, we heard some comments from Isis's mother, Derlanda, and she is back here. Derlanda Farmer may finally get some sleep with the comfort of knowing a man who lives just a mile away from her is behind bars in the execution-style shooting deaths of her daughter, a 6-year-old boy, and the boy's father. These people died for actually nothing. What did you gain? Was this worth this? Said Farmer, who is grieving for her daughter, Isis Rimzan, 28. I think she makes an excellent point. It blows my mind that this guy does all this, goes through this, and he's literally searching for expensive watches later that night. Like, he just came into money or had an inheritance or something like that, while he's also searching for, hey, burning cars in Detroit, news about that stuff. I don't know. I don't know if this guy's in his right mind. It could be that he's using something at this time as well. Bari's next court dates are October 22nd and 29th. Authorities spent 2 days processing the scene on Otis, as well as the car in Detroit. They interviewed about 20 people, canvassed the area for video and witnesses, and collected cellular forensics. Another big component to everything we're hearing here, because a lot of the notes we're getting are tied into GPS data. As well as interviewed the suspect and his relatives. Authorities learned Moore was involved in narcotics trafficking, kept large amounts of drugs and money, and was engaged in the activity with Bari. So according to what we're hearing here from the Detroit Free Press, it seems like Tai'raz's father was in this business and specifically working in this business with Bari. Authorities said Bari has an extensive criminal history, including drug offenses and breaking and entering, dating to when he was 17 years old. Bari asked for a court-appointed attorney and said he did not have a job. From what I understand, I think he's only been out of jail for a little over a year at this point. We're going to get some better detail on that. Dwyer said good old-fashioned detective work, including tireless, relentless pursuit, added Detroit Police Commander Eric Decker, were the keys to solving the slayings. I've also seen another comment by Dwyer where he says if this case would have happened 20 years ago, that it wouldn't be solved at this point. So really leads me to believe that the cell phone information is probably playing a bit more of a significant role, maybe even than the cameras. It could be that the cell phone information gave them the trail that they should go looking for in terms of collecting the camera footage, because that comment just kind of stuck out to me, but he didn't really give any detail on it. Click on Detroit has an article where a legal analyst is talking about this case. I want to share some of his thoughts with you. I don't think that anyone looking at the criminal history could forecast the crimes Bari has been accused of and possibly committed here, said Local 4's legal analyst Neil Rockind. I think he's making a good point, because when I've read, and admittedly we don't have a lot of detail there, but really it's coming down to the breaking and entering, the drug charges. Does that always lead to a homicide? No. And in particular, a gruesome triple execution homicide? Not really. Actually makes me wonder if maybe there's other things that this guy's responsible for that we actually just don't know about yet. The man was released from prison on August 20th, that's 2019, after serving 7 years for a charge of fleeing and eluding out of Orchard Lake. Judges had previously sentenced Bari to prison each time he was arrested, including for larceny in 2006, for drugs in 2008, and most recently for the fleeing conviction. The man also reportedly violated probation on multiple occasions. I think we know now why they're not giving him a bond option. Bari's criminal record shows someone who is sick, demented, and who has really forfeited their right to interact with the rest of us, said the legal analyst. The state prison system evaluated Bari to determine if he was a danger, but found that he should be released after serving 7 years for his fleeing conviction. Well, he was out of jail for a year and 2 months, and then this happened. And I'm not saying he should have never got out of jail. Look, I know these are supposed to be systems of rehabilitation. And outside of that, it looks like they were pretty tough with him when it came to the court processes. I've seen some cases that I've looked into where it's like, oh my God, this guy had all these charges and they gave him probation and, did a home arrest type thing. I mean, it really seems like they were being tough on this guy. Giving him appropriate sentences, but it still is when he had enough freedom, he blew it, and he wound up devastating multiple families around this. In a very interesting twist, mother of 6-year-old killed execution style says she has met the suspect before, and I think it's pretty logical, especially if Takoyo was in business with this guy, that this guy would have been around a bit. I'm happy the detectives did their job. They caught him sooner than I thought they would, but nothing can bring my baby back, said Brittany Harris. The alleged killer, 37-year-old Nicholas Bari, was officially charged today. I've heard of him, seen him once or twice around my son's father, she said. A 6-year-old was involved, and he had no reason to be involved with whatever was going on. He was innocent. Dwyer, actually, I saw an interview with him where he made a comment about that as well. He was basically saying, hey, look, this wasn't just a terrible occurrence for people that aren't criminals. People in the criminal world would also say, this is not something you do. You don't wipe out children. This guy, it seems like he's really had the book pretty much thrown at him for his previous offenses, but based off of this one, I don't know if he's ever going to see freedom again in his life. And as a matter of fact, Dwyer keeps talking about the fact that, hey, we're still talking to the feds. We're still seeing if we can push something through here. Dwyer really wants the death penalty in this. Is that going to happen? I really don't know. But at a minimum, I think this guy is in jail for the rest of his life, assuming that this conviction goes through. family of the other 2 victims in the triple murder stood side by side in support outside of court during the arraignment. Warren police are asking the feds to look at this case to see if federal charges could lead to capital punishment. For now, Bari will stay in jail with no bond. There is a private funeral this weekend for Tai'raz, but on Saturday, there will be a public memorial celebrating this little boy at Sheen Park in Detroit from noon to 5. A lot of people would wonder what type of person could do this to a child. But then I read this fact, and it makes that question stick out even more. Neighbors said they did not really know Nicholas Bari, but said he does have a daughter that is about the age of 6-year-old Tai'raz Moore. This guy is a father, and he still did that to someone else. I mean, I'm not saying that like that's some type of pass or something. It makes that question worse. Like, I just don't get what's going on with this guy. What could this have been? I mean, and it's the message we're getting from Dwyer is this is kind of, it's drugs and money. You know, effectively, this is boiling down to a robbery. Wiping out 3 people so you can buy a nice watch? Is that really what this is? I'm so thankful that we have authorities working this case like they are. I mean, they got on this. I don't know how they got the GPS information so quick. Sometimes we hear about cases where it seems like they're struggling to get that and that information doesn't come through for months. Somehow this information came very, very fast. And then to be able to use that in a time frame where you could still go trace down those surveillance cameras, and there's a very good chance that the footage is actually still there. Just everything seemed to kind of go right in this investigation. And on top of that, their communication with the media has been very strong. I think we can kind of piece together the order of events now. It seems like Takoyo was over at Bari's house earlier that night. I think at that point, Takoyo might have been shot, put into the back of the vehicle. Bari then decides that he's going to wipe out the family. I still don't know what the logic is there outside of what Dwyer suspected, that maybe Tai'raz could have identified him and maybe ISIS could have identified him as well. He's there for about 12 minutes. He then drives away, buys a gas can, buys gas for it, drives to the location where he sets the vehicle on fire, winds up taking a taxi back home, and starts shopping for a new watch. It's strange because when it comes to Tai'raz's case, you still wonder if justice is ever, it's never going to be enough. I can answer it. It's never going to be enough. Is it going to help ease what those families are going through? I think so, but is it going to fill that hole in their heart? Never. It's really terrible. And I know this from knowing other family members that have faced similar situations. It was back in March of 2019 when someone handed me a blue envelope that had some papers in it that included an article about a case, included a letter from the mother of the victim, and I did the episode on BrainScratch about Elisa Gomez. That would turn into a series with 3 Men and a Mystery, where we were given really some of the best access in terms of police materials that I've ever had to any case that I've looked at. Body cam footage, suspect interviews, or I guess witness interviews. There is no real suspect in this case because from the police's perspective, Elisa ended her own life. But last weekend on Sunday was October 11th, and it is 4 years since Elisa's death. And her mother reached out to me a few weeks ago and said they were going to be doing a memorial walk, basically from the Cedar Inn, which, if you're not familiar with the story, is a bar that is literally about 2 doors down from where Elisa was living. And we have security camera footage from that bar of Elisa there with her husband of maybe 8 hours at the time that they were at the bar. They had got married earlier that day at the courthouse, went to the bar to celebrate. Elisa, her husband, and their roommate, Sharon. Something, for me, looking at that footage, something happened in the bar. There was some type of disagreement. Elisa seems to leave upset. Later that night, the neighbors have to call 911 because they hear a domestic dispute that's going on literally right outside their window. But for some reason, police, I don't want to say they don't respond. That's not exactly true. According to the police records, 30 minutes after that 911 call, a unit does drive by, but they don't see anything outside, so they don't stop. And I just have to say, I've had to call on cases or issues like that once or twice before. And in my experience, not only do the police usually stop to address wherever the domestic disturbance is going on, to at least do a door knock and kind of check in with people, they usually also talk to the people that made the phone call. So here you had two houses that they could have interacted with, but because they didn't see anything happening outside, they just decided to drive by. Anyway, the next morning, Elisa would be found dead. It looked like she might have hung herself using a scarf, but first responders can't really know for sure because when they show up, her body's on the ground. There's this story that her roommate cut her down with a pair of nail clippers, which I still don't understand. And I've seen the evidence photos. I've looked at that scarf. I don't understand what the nail clippers did in terms of undoing a knot. It doesn't make sense. And there's no section of the scarf that's really cut. We tried to interview Sharon several times. There was a lot of promises that it was going to happen, but she never came through with that. Effectively, through doing the season of Three Men, we talked to numerous experts. We talked to the psychologist from LA Not So Confidential. We had them look through the whole text. Basically, all of Elisa's relationship with this guy was a matter of only several weeks, and they communicated a lot in text, and we had all of those texts. So we had Dr. Shiloh and Dr. Scott look at all that information, and then we asked them point blank, are you seeing signs that she was in a state of mind to do something like this to herself? And they both independently said, no, we're not seeing that at all. And then we also asked, well, what are you seeing in Brad's character? Is he capable of doing something like this? And they said, well, certainly, especially when you consider his previous criminal history, which includes doing time specifically for choking a previous wife of his. But we get here to 4 years later. We meet an investigator while we're doing Three Men and a Mystery, a man named John Bishop, and an attorney. And they decide they want to start looking at it. So we start sharing materials with them. He starts doing his own investigation. He starts compiling a list of everything that he's seeing that is kind of pointing him to the direction that this is actually a homicide as well. We had, who's considered by many the national staged homicide expert, Dr. Laura Petler, look into this case as well. And she basically said, hey, look, this is ringing most of the bells for, we have to be careful processing this because this looks like it could be a staged homicide. You know, she didn't, unfortunately, we don't have access to quite the amount of material to get a full investigation done by Dr. Petler on this, but she has developed methods for identifying where staged homicides are occurring. And the only thing that didn't fit was usually the person that calls 911 is the person that is setting up or staging the homicide. In this instance, Brad did not call 911, but there was kind of a good reason for it. His phone was in the neighbor's bushes, seemingly from that fight the night before. So it's actually the roommate that winds up calling 911, but she's prompted directly to do so by Brad. So even on that one, we kind of get a soft check mark. All the other conditions that Dr. Petler was looking for, this case rang them all. So we've got experts looking at this saying, this looks like it's a staged homicide. John Bishop does an analysis. We actually featured it on Three Men and a Mystery. That document, I think at this point, is probably 40 different points of information that are pointing towards this actually being a homicide. He reaches out to the medical examiner. The medical examiner, who is honestly leaving the door open for this to be classified as a homicide. At this point, this case is left in an undetermined status. The medical examiner wouldn't say that Elisa ended her own life specifically because he said he couldn't rule out that someone else was involved with this. So we're thinking, we've got all this new information, this new analysis from an investigator. Let's get it to the medical examiner. I'm watching the communication that's going on initially, and the medical examiner is saying, yeah, let's have a meeting and let's set up a time. And then over the course of a week, as they're trying to set up a time, all of a sudden there is an absolute hard stop. And the medical examiner says, I can't really review this information. You need to run it through the investigators that were working the case, which we know what their assumption is. We know how they've treated this case in the past. Why are they going to look at information just because we're bringing it to them now? And oh, by the way, we've had some national experts looking at this. Everyone is saying that something's wrong with this case except you guys. But we get to 4 years later and a family still stuck. So Judy reaches out to me and says, John, we're going to do a walk from the Cedar Inn down to a lake that's nearby where there is a tree that has been planted in Elisa's honor. So I wanted to be there to support the family. I know this is a crazy year. I was very aware of social distancing and safety. I got myself all ready, went out there. I was thinking this was going to be like maybe, 10 people or something like that. It wasn't just a walk. It actually turned out to be a march. There was maybe, I think in total, I would say somewhere about 40 to 50 people. And several of them were actually marshals, you would call them, for the walk. They were bikers, and they were essentially clearing traffic from the streets so that all the people that were walking on the street, it was about a mile walk to the park, would be safe. And, we're talking about, we've got some older citizens that were part of that walk as well. We had Elisa's mother, we had Elisa's father, we had Elisa's sister there. Her daughter was actually at the park as well. I was pretty moved by it. There was a really special moment. I was walking directly right behind the family. And one of Elisa's favorite songs came on, and I saw her sister turn around and her eyes just said the story. Obviously she was wearing a mask, but I could just see it in her eyes. It was just, I'm very proud that I was there to be there for them. I'm really sorry that they have to be doing that in this way to try to get some help or try to get some justice. But it was very sweet when we got to the park. We got to Elisa's tree and they had pink ribbons, and we were all able to go and tie a ribbon on the tree. And then her family spoke as well. And her sister gave an update from investigator John Bishop about what's going on with that case as well. So I've cut together a little something for you guys, just a few minutes that I wanted to share with you about that walk, about what it was like. And I hope that you guys appreciate that I'm sharing this with you. So here we go.
Everybody, do you all know Judy? This is Lisa's mother. Thank you all for coming out. Thank you all for coming out. And I'm glad we have a nice day. And if you just grab a sign, we're getting ready to start. Thank you so much. We're here for justice. We're here for justice for Lisa, but we're also here for justice for everyone. It is sick in our society that we can have a situation where a woman can be murdered by her brand new husband, and he gets to help himself to all of her worldly goods, and the Minneapolis police stand by and fail to even investigate. We demand justice for Lisa Gomez, and we will not stop until we have justice for Lisa Gomez.
That's right.
That's why we're here. And we're going to take it to the streets to let people know. helped us at all. We have a detective, John Bishop from Oklahoma, that has been working on her case. My daughter Angela is going to read what he's written so far.
He's done more in this case in a year than the police ever did. He's put his own time and effort, and the police couldn't give her one day, and it's really disgusting. So he says, the family has been seeking truth and justice for Elisa's death. We believe we know what happened, who is responsible, and we can prove it. This may be the 4th anniversary of her death. We have known all along she was murdered. This past year, John Lorden, Mike Morford, and Gray Hughes of 3 Men and a Mystery, along with John Bishop and Carrie, I can't see her name, Swalblankovich, have been investigating Elisa's death. The investigation brought forth evidence to support the cause of death to be murder rather than undetermined. We have been trying to meet with the Hennepin County Medical Examiner's Office to present these findings and to help change the cause of Elisa's death to homicide. We have not been met with open arms, of course. We have been told to contact Sergeant Jensen and Lieutenant Freeman of the Minneapolis Police Department. There are so many reasons that these 2 officers of Minneapolis Police Department Homicide Division should not be trusted with the new evidence in Elisa's case, or to be allowed to further traumatize our family. The Hennepin County Prosecutor's Office insists that the evidence be presented to the Minneapolis Police Department first. Regardless of what happens with this meeting, only the Hennepin County Medical Examiner can change Elisa's cause of death. Minneapolis Police Homicide has all the evidence on this case. They have either missed it or refused to look at it as anything other than a suicide. We will not quit our fight for justice. We are steadfast in our resolve to bring justice for Elisa and to have her murderer and any accomplices answer for their crimes. We need your help. Please contact your representatives, city council members, county commissioners, judges, Hennepin County prosecutors, Hennepin County Medical Examiner, Minneapolis Police Chief, news media, family, friends, and any voice on social media. We want to be heard. We want a chance to present the evidence to the medical examiner, Dr. Lauren Jackson. We want an unbiased review of the evidence. Our next step, we are preparing to brief Minneapolis Police Commander Fulkins and possibly the Minneapolis Police Chief Arredondo on the case evidence. This is what Hennepin County Assistant Prosecutor Patty Jerkovich insists we do before we can speak with Dr. Jackson. Whatever you say will be perfect. Thoughts and prayers, John. So any help anybody can give, but the Minneapolis Police Department and Hennepin County absolutely refuse to do anything for us. And if there's evidence, they want to be involved, and we just don't want those investigators involved at all. They've done us wrong. We don't want them. They're biased, and we need justice for my sister. Thanks, everybody, for being here.
It was a small but mighty crowd, let's just say. And like so many other things in Elisa's life, it was really about expression. And I'm so thankful that everyone that came out to support it did. I'm thankful for the organizers for making sure that it was safe for everyone to be there. It was just very well handled from top to bottom. And outside of the pain and the anger, there was respect and peace. That was also such a big part of it. And I really appreciate being a part of that as well. And thank you to everyone that has supported our efforts in terms of looking into that case on both 3 Men and a Mystery, and of course here on the Lord and Arts channel as well. Before I end today's video, I want to thank several new patrons. Thank you so much, Natalie Burkett. Thank you, Wendy Ezel. Thank you, Lois P. And thank you, Laura Durnez. If you'd like to support the channel, please visit lordandarts.com, where you can sign up for PayPal, sign up for Patreon, or buy merchandise. All of it helps keep me here, helping these families in these really tough situations, and doing it always with limited commercials, sometimes with no commercials. So I really appreciate your guys' support. Take care, everyone. Have a wonderful weekend. I will see you again here on Monday with a brand new episode of Case Cracked. And guess what? Christy Arnhart will be back joining in again to talk about the case at the end. Hope you guys enjoy that here on the Lord and Arts channel.